Kevin on with our Facebook Lives today, and Kevin's going to be a vendor at the conference. Kevin, do you want to kind of tell us a little bit how basically why you decided you wanted to be involved in the conference and what's your product that you're going to be having there at the conference?
Well, I've always been interested in health the last 20 years. Before, I kind of abused my body a lot and broke a lot of bones and things, and drank a lot of soda pop. And so I was in really, really poor health. And then I had a wake-up call when I went to the doctor, and he said, well, you've got arteriosclerosis and the aorta, and you got to put you on Lipitor and statins, and you've been on blood pressure medicine now for 25 years. So you got to really do something to change your life. And so I found this product called the Avaced, made in San Diego, California, that helps to increase the microcirculation in your body. And it's, changed my life and the life of my family. And so we're really excited about this product. Avaced has been around for 14 years. It was invented in 2009. It wasn't invented by a doctor. It was invented by a scientist up at Stanford. He was working on trying to figure out how to cure migraines and headaches because he had a sister-in-law down in San Diego who had hormonal migraines where she was in bed 15 or 20 days a month. And
oh, geez.
So he invented this device that increases the circulation and raises the core body temperature by about 1 degree Fahrenheit, tricking the body into thinking you have a fever, called the fever effect. And so I activated the immune system for up to 12 hours. I'm not a scientist, so I don't understand a lot about it, but it has something to do with, T3 cells in the brain and things that I really don't understand. But after she used the device, because his sister-in-law, her husband was a medical doctor, or is a medical doctor, and so they were kind of curious about this, but he was kind of skeptical. But it started helping with her migraines, and after about 6 weeks, she's been migraine-free for the last 14 years. And so that's how it started. And
that's pretty crazy because hormonal headaches, like as a chiropractor, we help headaches all the time. But one of the things that is the hardest thing to deal with is the headaches because of hormonals, because it's every time of the month, it's always different. So we just don't have as high of a success unless you start doing metabolic issues. But that's really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also interesting that you said that it makes you trick your brain into thinking, or your body into thinking, that you have a fever, and that's why it kicks in your immune system response.
Yeah, it does that. There was some studies done about the fever effect, I think in the 1980s, back at the Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital in New York, where they had a whole wing of autistic kids that by coincidence got a fever at once. And when they did, they found out a lot of their autism symptoms were mitigated. And then after their fevers went away, their autism symptoms came back. And so the fever effect's been around, for, several decades, trying to figure out and what it does and everything. And it's all kind of, go ahead.
I was just going to say, explain it, because I know that your booth last year, you had a booth last year as well, and there was always people there. So you have like 4 or 5 machines lined up, and they basically put their hand, and they just sit there and sit for like 10 minutes, right? They just put their hand in this machine, and it kind of explain that.
Well, what it does is part of our
FDA
clearance. We're an FDA cleared Class 2 medical device. We spent over 6 years and $5 million with the FDA getting it cleared for temporary pain relief of any type of arthritis in the body, for muscle soreness, muscle relaxation, strains and sprains, better and deeper sleep, and increasing overall circulation. So you just put on this mitt, and then you put your hand in this machine, and we set it on a high with 3 different temperature settings, and you can set it for high, medium, or low. And lately we've been doing it for like 30 minutes, and we found that to be very effective. And so what we're doing is we have about 100,000 miles of blood vessels in our body, and 74% of them are the capillaries, the ones smaller than the size of our hair. So that's like 74,000 miles. So that's like 3 times around the earth. And so I'll be 71 in July. So I'm kind of getting up there in age a little bit. But after we reach about 40, we start losing that capillary density. And so our capillaries don't start working. That's why we start getting a lot of different health issues or things. And we have a huge concentration of these capillaries in the palm of our hand and the bottom of our feet. That's why they control our body temperature. So at night, if you're too hot, you can stick your foot out from underneath your covers and your whole body cools off. And the reason we use the palm of the hand instead of the foot, because the palm of the hand is closer to the heart and because the skin is much thinner. And so we've got thousands of miles of these AVAs in the palm of the hand. And they're called AVAs, or arterial venous anastomosis. They're actually a name for them. And they're the shunts between the arteries and the veins and the venules and all those other little things, blood vessels we have in our hands. And so we're heating them up in a vacuum, because if you put your hand in hot water or get in a hot tub, it'll dilate your blood vessels for a few minutes. And then after a few minutes, the brain tells it to constrict it because it wants to protect the body. But because we're dilating the blood vessels in the palm of the hand in a vacuum, that vacuum, just slight vacuum, prevents the brain from constricting the blood vessels and keeps them dilated. So by the second law of thermodynamics, heat goes to cold, it's going to force that warm, thinner blood throughout your whole body in just a couple matter of minutes. So if you have a headache, a lot of times it'll go away in 15 or 20 minutes. So if you have neuropathy, a lot of people feel relief in about 30 minutes. We have a family in Lehigh that I went to see them last week, and they had purchased a machine, and they were telling me that the wife, that she's got something called some type of a cyst in her toe or something. I don't know what they're called, but and they said they can't operate on it. She just has to put up with it. And
a neuroma?
Yeah, that's what they said. Yes.
Okay. So a neuroma is just a nerve that kind of becomes cystic, and it's really painful.
Right. And so the doctor said it's too close, to the toe or the end of the toe, and they can't operate or anything. And so she said that, this is going away after, 2 weeks. And so we get all sorts of, different results,
Yeah, some crazy things that you're not expecting, but it's still it's basically just helping the body turn on itself to do something that it's supposed to do properly, it sounds like.
Yeah, by dilating the blood vessels, and the blood vessels can create more oxygen, and oxygen, we know, is what gets rid of inflammation. And we create more oxygen by exercise, by eating right, by taking good supplements, and using medical devices, like the Avaced that's used in thousands of hospitals, all around the world.
Well, I know last year your booth you had a lot of people there.
I know. I actually sat down, but I didn't have 20 minutes to sit down, so I could only do it for a couple of minutes at a time.
But all of our kids sat there. We had
I think you had 4 chairs last time, and they were always full. People were always checking it out, so that's awesome. And this year you actually have a couple booths, so you can have more opportunities.
Yeah, so we'll have 6 or 7 Avaced machines there today, so more people can have an opportunity, so they don't have to wait in line or anything. But our motto is that getting old is inevitable, but aging is optional, and it's not really an aging problem; it's a microcirculation problem. And so we say the microcirculation is the holy grail of our health and longevity, because our oxygen availability is limited by our blood flow. So anytime we can increase our blood flow, and that's going to increase our oxygen, and oxygen, which holds all of our toxins and all the inflammation, then oxygen is really important to our lives. And
well, and the biggest answer to that, what you just stated, to make it more sense and more true, is you just look at a smoker versus a non-smoker, right? Someone that's a smoker that's 50, they just look older than a non-smoker at 50. And the reason is because their skin and everything else, they just don't get the oxygenation, the blood supply to those tissues. And so they don't have the more youthful look, right? And so that is a great example of why blood supply and keeping good blood supply is so good for what you were saying is the age. It doesn't have to be, increased age is you're going to have it, but you don't have to look it, right?
That's right. And here we live in Utah. And so at sea level, we have about 21% oxygen, where we only have 17 or 17.5% here in Salt Lake Valley. We're at 4,000 or 5,000 feet. And so we really need more oxygen, and it gets colder here. And so that, hardens our blood vessels and things. And so we need better circulation to keep us younger and to keep us healthier. And all the Avaced is only cleared for arthritis and a few other things. We've got clinical studies on type 2 diabetes, on heart disease, on fibromyalgia. We did a study at the Veterans Hospital in San Diego a few years ago, a 4-week study, where we reduced the fibromyalgia pain by more than 40%. And we're not cleared for that here in the United States yet, but we did win an award for it in Europe in 2017. So we're approved for temporary pain relief from fibromyalgia in Europe and Canada. So we can tell you it works in those countries because they're medical. because you're not a pharmaceutical cartel that has billions of dollars that can get it passed through the FDA. But we're not going to say that. Right. Like I say, we already spent over $5 million with them. So, we're not, we don't have, millions and millions of dollars to do all those studies, but we've got studies on plantar fasciitis and on autism and other things. And it really just seems to help with just about everything that you have. I was an electrical contractor for 45 years. And so I became an expert at falling off of ladders and scaffolds. And so I've broken both of my heels, an ankle, a leg. I've had knee surgery, broken my arm, and fractured my back. And so I know what arthritis is. And so before I got this, I used to have to limp around for 15 or 20 minutes to warm up my body. And now I put my left hand in it in the morning for 30 minutes while I'm eating breakfast with my right hand and deleting emails and talking on the phone and sending texts. So you can multitask with this because the effects last for about 12 hours. And I'll use my other hand at night when I'm, reading a book or watching a movie. But my wife uses it like 4 times a day. And that's why I originally got it. She had a couple of bad knee replacements in 2016 and 17, and she's been on a walker ever since. And so we went over to Tosh, the Spinal Institute in Salt Lake, and they said that, well, you've got spinal stenosis and a slip disc between L4 and L5. And because you're over 70, well, we can't operate and it's too degenerated and we can't give you a cortisone shot. So just take drugs to sleep the rest of your life. So she's been hooked on opioids for more than 2 years just to go to sleep.
Oh, no.
And after using this device 4 times a day for about 3 months, it didn't happen overnight, but after about 3 months, she was able to wean herself completely off of drugs, and she's been drug free for over 3 years.
Well, that is
awesome.
amazing.
Yeah.
People are going to have to come over and just try it, check it out at your booth, and they're going to have to experience it themselves. And so, do you have a code that you want to share with your audience that you have for the conference?
Yes, it's called Kevin 40. So we have a code so people can get in 40% off on their tickets and everything. And
so that's for the 2-day live event. So Kevin 40 gives them the 2-day live event for almost half price. So
that's right. So it's a great price for this event because there's so many good booths, at this event. And
well, and you've been there for a couple of years, so you know how important this. You were there at our first one, right? Were you? Oh, no. Okay. You were there.
No, I wasn't there at your very first one. But,
yes, but you did our virtual one with us too. So that's what.
That's right.
All right. Well,
so thanks, Kevin. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming on board and sharing your message. And this just tells you one other thing that's going to be at the conference. There's so many cool different booths, different options, speakers, all that kind of stuff. But who would have thought something like this, but somebody thought it up and now it's helping people, and it might be the answer to your health problems too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it very much.
All right. See you later, Kevin.